Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about buzzard eagles. What's a buzzard eagle, you ask? I'll tell you in a minute. This is a big video. It's got a lot of research that went involved into this, so I hope you appreciate it. I'm going to go in depth on 3 species. And before we do, if you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe, it helps me keep this channel up and going, and I very much appreciate it. So buzzard eagles. There's 3 species we're going to be talking about. The first one is the white-tailed hawk. You're like, well, that's a hawk then, right? No, it's a buzzard eagle. The second one is the variable hawk, which again, hawk, it's a buzzard eagle. And the last one is the black-chested buzzard eagle, which some people nowadays are calling a Chilean blue eagle. But it lives in more places than Chile, and it's a buzzard eagle. So what am I talking about? What does this even mean? What are these 3 species? Well, these 3 species comprise the genus Geranoides. And Geranoides is the New World buzzard eagles. Now, we got to get into this. We got to set some definitions here so we kind of understand what on earth we're talking about. So first of all, buzzard eagle has the word eagle in it. What is an eagle? Well, strictly speaking, if we're being honest, a true eagle is an eagle that is of the lineage that is Aquila. So a golden eagle is, of course, the most standard thought of eagle, you know, when you think Aquila eagles, all right? So if you're in that line, then you're a true eagle. Others are not. A bald eagle is not an eagle. Bald eagles, we call them eagles, but bald eagles are in the sea eagle family. They're more closely actually related to old world vultures and to things like kites. So that's kind of strange. You got other eagles like a harp eagle. Harp eagle's the strongest, most powerful eagle on the planet, and yet it's not technically a true eagle. So we have to understand that if you're being really specific, a true eagle is an eagle that is from Aquila. But there's a lot of other birds that are big enough that we just like, well, we call it an eagle because it's the size of an eagle. So it's an eagle, a bald eagle, case in point. Oh, it's an eagle. Well, no, it's not. But sure, it's an eagle, okay? So a lot of times if a bird is big enough, we will call it an eagle. Now there are hawk eagles. I recently did a video on the New World hawk eagles, which are the black and white hawk eagle, the black or tyrant hawk eagle, the ornate hawk eagle, and the black and chestnut eagle, also known as the, I think it should be called the Andean eagle, but it's the Isidore's eagle. Those 4 are the New World hawk eagles. One of them is the size of an eagle. The other ones are in between the size of a hawk and an eagle. But they are technically cousins, like a sister lineage to the true eagles, the true Aquila eagles. So it's like, kind of in between the size of a hawk and an eagle, and very closely related to true eagles. Now, the same thing in the old world. There's, I can't remember, it's not like 19 or something. So an insane amount of number of old world hawk eagles that branched off separate, and they're not closely related to the New World hawk eagles, but same thing. They're booted on their legs, and they're very similar in appearance. So you're using the word eagle and hawk. Well, then what is a buzzard eagle? Well, if you are in the United States, you're going to have a very different idea about that term, because let's talk about the word buzzard. What is a buzzard? It's not a vulture. If you're in the United States, we use the term, in an inappropriate kind of a slang type term, buzzard, to mean vulture. In fact, we have turkey vultures, and I can't tell you how many old timers I've heard call them turkey buzzards. I'm like, it's not a buzzard. It's not a buzzard. So let's set some definitions here, okay? So first of all, eagles are like Aquila eagles, like a golden eagle. A hawk, a true hawk, is something like a goshawk. These are from the accipiter clade, and they're forest hawks. They're very fast, they're very snappy, they dive in and out and zigzag, and very fast, very aggressive. Buzzards are soaring, quote-unquote, hawks. So if you're in the United States, a red-tailed hawk is the buzzard you're most probably familiar with. We should call them red-tailed buzzards, and other people outside of the country do. They do call them red-tailed buzzards. But we'll go with the slang, we'll call it a red-tailed hawk. All right, so red-tailed hawk, red-tailed buzzard. So buzzards are soaring birds. They're not forest dwellers that dive in and out. They are big open country birds that either want to just sit on a perch and look out over their domain looking for something to dive on, usually a rodent, or they're soaring around looking for quarry that way. That is usually what a buzzard is. That's what usually a buzzard does. And again, So in the United States, you have things like the red-tailed hawk, the ferruginous hawk, which is our biggest buzzard, the Swainson's hawk, to name a few. So these are all buzzards. So saying a buzzard eagle to the rest of the world sounds similar to us saying hawk eagle, because in America we say red-tailed hawk, even though it's a buzzard. So saying a buzzard eagle, if you're in another country, sounds like saying hawk eagle. But in America, if you say buzzard eagle, your brain pictures vultures. It's like it's a cross between a vulture and an eagle, and that's not the case, even though they do scavenge. So this is important to remember. But the difference is this: buzzard eagles. So you have instances where big birds over time get small. That big species that there's prey opportunities and environmental conditions that favor getting smaller, including the hawk eagles. So, for example, like the ornate hawk eagle that I mentioned earlier in the New World came from a lineage of bigger birds. We have them in the fossil record. We can see they were bigger, and over time conditions favored them getting smaller, but they come from a lineage of bigger birds. Meanwhile, you have birds that we're talking about today, like the white-tailed hawk, and these are kind of roughly the size of a big hawk, but they are getting bigger. They're trying to punch up, where some of these species are punching down. So how do we know that? How do we know the difference? Well, there's a couple things we look for. First of all, most birds of prey, they molt, and when they do, so they hatch out of an egg, and within a few weeks to a few months, they're full-sized, but they have first-year colors. Like a red-tailed hawk has kind of muted browns and tans and creams. And then, once it's 1 year old, that's its first new summer, it goes through a molt, and it gets its beautiful adult colors. And then every year after that, it will keep getting those adult colors. It'll get a new set, get a new set, get a new set. But that's 1 year. 1 year. Large birds, such as true eagles like aquila eagles, and false eagles like bald eagles or even harp eagles, that takes them 4 or 5 years to molt in. So they have different color phases. You got your first year colors, second year, third, fourth, fifth, and once you get your 5-year-old colors, then every year after you'll get a new set of 5-year-old colors. This is something we see with big birds. Now the assumption, the inference, is that if you have lived to adulthood, you are a good provider, you're a good hunter, you are a proper, suitable mate. You're somebody that, hey, if I start a family with you, we'll still be able to provide for these young. Because you've lived this long, you must know what you're doing. Smaller birds live fast, die young, and so, just 1 year to get to adult colors, sure, you survived winter, let's start a family. But these bigger birds cover bigger areas. The bigger the bird, typically, again, a larger area is covered and defended. And so those birds also typically live longer, and so you don't need to replace as often. So what we also see is big raptor species, typically they do not have multiple eggs. They might only have 1 egg, maybe 2, where smaller birds, a Cooper's hawk regularly have 4 or 5 eggs. So you're breeding your replacement, your future replacement. And so bigger birds don't want to have too much competition going on. And so there's some raptor species that only have, only nest like every other year. Like condors, it's only like one every 2 or 3 years will they lay 1 egg. California condors. So, it's supply and demand. So what we see is there are some species that come from big lineages that have gotten small. So, for example, the common blackhawk, which barely occurs here in Utah. It's more of a tropical species. It's the size of a red-tail, maybe even a little smaller than a red-tailed hawk. But they typically only lay 1 or occasionally 2 eggs. The reason is because they come from a lineage of eagle-like birds. We call them eagles, right? Like the black solitary eagle, sometimes called the montane solitary eagle. It's the size of a golden eagle, and it's a cousin of the blackhawk. And again, members of the blackhawk lineage, which is Buteogallus, many of them have gotten smaller to fill certain ecological roles. But because they came from large lineages, they're still laying only 1, maybe 2 eggs. So they're big and they're punching down. And you compare that to the buzzard eagles of the New World, which again are the white-tailed hawk, the variable hawk, and the black-chested buzzard eagle. These 3, they're all buzzard eagles. All 3 of these species They come from small lineages that are getting bigger. And so they all lay multiple eggs. They'll all lay typically like 3 eggs, which is very strange for birds that size. Kind of interesting. So all three of these species, I'll get into each of them individually. All three of them prefer vast open country, from high elevation to low elevation. It doesn't matter. They like open land. They range from the desert to the tropics to the snowy Andes, way above the timberline. They all like to hunt mammals, but they'll hunt lizards and snakes, and all of them are kind of dumpy and slow. However, when they want to, all of them will hunt birds, which the ability to hunt a bird in the sky takes a lot of speed and a lot of agility. And so even though these are kind of ponderous and slow in their movements, when they want to hunt birds, they can really turn it on and be surprisingly agile. All three of these have ridiculously oversized primaries, especially the first two. Their wings are a little too long, and I'll get into that on each one specifically. And all of them are, even though they're epic hunters, all of them are extreme scavengers as well. Because remember, these are animals that are survivors of the Ice Age. And when the Ice Age, there was a lot of megafauna in the area that these raptors live, and something dies, something big, an extinct Ice Age camel or a woolly mammoth or something like that dies. You go in there, you got some really good food. You've got some good food to scavenge off of, and so all of these have the ability to be very aggressive on a kill. Kind of similar in some respects to a colder version of, say, tawny eagles and steppe eagles in the old world, where they will chase off larger raptors off of kills, including especially Andean condors. And I'll get into that specifically when I cover the black-chested buzzard eagle. But this video specifically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all three of these species in detail. But I want people to just be aware that these species even exist. And because this video is going to be long, I don't want somebody to be like, well, I just want to learn about one of these species. That's too long. I'm not going to watch it. So I'm going to cut the video up also and break it up and do new introductions and do each species separately as well. But you're watching the long form video right now, and we're going to talk about all three of these: the white-tailed hawk, the variable hawk, and the black-chested buzzard eagle. So I hope you're ready. Let's jump on into these species. The white-tailed hawk. This is really a handsome and stately looking bird. We call it a hawk, but in truth, it is a member of the buzzard eagle lineage. It's the smallest of the New World buzzard eagles, the smallest of the three, but it's still quite large. It's normal adult colors. It's creamy. It's kind of white-chested. It can be black. It can be red. It kind of has red on the shoulders. And as an adult, it has a brilliant white tail. Now, there are melanistic forms that are totally dark that are very striking as well. These are common, but they're not common in the United States. So this is a bird that is mostly further south. You get down into the Latin America, where you see this bird, and where it ranges, the further south you get, the more melanistic individuals you find. But where it ranges up into Texas, you basically never see any of the melanistic individuals. Now, size-wise, this species, the wingspan is about 56 inches, so that's about 4 foot 6 inches, so big, substantial wings. And the weight is about 1,240 grams, which is about 2.73 pounds. So this is a sizable hawk. And again, I'm going to be using the term hawk and buzzard eagle interchangeably. It's the smallest of the New World buzzard eagles. But again, we use the term hawk inaccurately in the New World. A true hawk is something like a goshawk. And something like a red-tailed hawk is a buzzard. And so this is a member of the buzzard eagle family. So what's really strange about these, though, they have a big wingspan, but their primaries are oversized to the point where when the wings are folded up, the primary feathers actually extend down past the tail, which is true of all New World buzzard eagles, but especially the white-tailed hawk. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll always notice it. But oddly, the tails of the first-year birds are about 15% longer, which is kind of interesting. 15% longer than adult, and on adult they're already that much different. So what we see is with tails, with raptors, sometimes it seems like you kind of get a pass when you're young. So the tail of a juvenile, a good example is peregrine falcons. Peregrine falcons have a pretty long tail as a first-year bird, and then they lose several inches their second year. The new tail that comes in is much shorter and stiffer, and so the assumption is the longer your tail is, the easier it is to turn, but it also creates drag. And so a shorter tail, once you really know how to move, then you could, assumingly, that's the inference, is that you can use a shorter tail. So it'd be kind of like the difference between flying a propeller-powered plane versus a jet. You first learn with a prop plane, and then you move up. Kind of that same kind of idea. We believe that is the case, and we definitely see it with the white-tailed hawk. They have these oversized tails and ridiculously oversized wings, but again, they lose about 15% of that tail their second year, and so then the primaries are even longer. The juveniles, the first-year birds, they start off dark. Now remember, with most raptor species that are the size of a hawk, take a red-tailed hawk for example, you'll have first-year colors, and then once you're 1 year old, you molt and you get your adult colors, and you'll get a new set every year. Well, that is not the case, because white-tailed hawks are actually not hawks, but they're actually buzzard eagles. They have a multi-year molt. It's a 3 to 4 year molt, which means that they have different color phases moving up. So you'll have first-year colors, second-year colors, third-year colors, fourth-year colors, and when by their fifth year, you have then your beautiful, striking adult colors and your fancy white tail. So it can be kind of tricky when you're trying to identify these birds in the field, because you might have some sort of intermediate color phase going on, and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. So but it's good to understand that fact, that it takes many years for these birds to reach their adult coloration. You don't see that with birds this size. That is not normal for a bird this small. But again, they are moving and evolving into filling a larger role, and so having juvenile colors longer indicates to any prospective mate that you haven't been around long enough, you're not ready to start a family, and it's a safer bet to pick an adult that has adult plumage, and so they're moving up. They're moving into filling a more eagle-like role. Their nest that they make is kind of strange, because they'll make a big old stick nest, but oddly, I don't have any good pictures of this, but oddly it has been observed that some of them seem to have nests that are almost decorative, where they'll just have like a random stick sticking way out. That just seems to be some sort of expression. We don't really see this with any other raptor. Normally nests are just about function when it comes to raptors. If a raptor builds a nest, it's just to keep the babies safe. But they will put one or two decorative, like sticking way out from the nest, just random giant stick. It's strange. When we're dealing with animals, a lot of times we don't know what we're really dealing with, because we don't know what makes sense to them. So could that be a cultural thing? The first vestige of a cultural expression, that, well, this is what we do. This is how we say that we're this kind of hawk. We don't know. But it's an unusual thing. They normally have 2 to 3 eggs, which again, it kind of makes sense for a bird this size. And it's interesting that a lot of times they're scissor-tailed flycatchers that will nest right next to the white-tailed hawk nest, or even in it. So in other words, they will go down, and in the below parts of the nest itself will weave a little nest, and they will nest in there. Now that seems really strange, because if you think about it, these hawks will sometimes hunt birds. So why would you risk that? Why would you do that? And the reason being is, if you are near a hawk nest, in theory, other predators are less likely to eat you. And in theory, that predator itself is less likely to go after you, because there's no element of surprise. But even though they will nest right next to these, they also will sometimes mob them. And I've got a picture also that's kind of an interesting one, where there is a white-tailed hawk and there is a flycatcher. It's not a scissor-tailed flycatcher, but it is a flycatcher that's dive bombing it. And you'll notice to the side there are 2 shrikes. Now, shrikes are very interesting birds. They're also called butcher birds. Shrikes are predators. They're predatory birds, but they're not considered raptors. They'll catch prey. They'll catch mice and catch other birds and catch insects, and they catch them with their beak, and then they'll fly up either to a thorn bush or a piece of barbed wire, and they will impale their prey on that, and then they will pull the meat off from there because they don't have gripping talons like raptors do. So shrikes are hunters, but they will happily steal a free meal. And in this video, in this photo, you can see that these two shrikes are perched next to the white-tailed hawk, and they try to find the scraps, because if a white-tailed hawk is eating and tearing apart food, then it might drop a few little pieces. Shrike is a lot smaller. It can fly down afterward and try to see if it can eat any of what was dropped on the ground. So there's kind of this interaction that happens between flycatchers and shrikes and white-tailed hawks, and it's very commonly documented. So what do the whitetails themselves eat? Well, they are very, very adaptable. In Texas, they almost exclusively hunt rabbits. Now that should be impressive, because most buzzards of any kind, like red-tailed hawks, they're always going to go for the smallest meal, the easiest meal. So if you're like, hey, red-tailed hawk, here's a rabbit, and here's a mouse or a vole or a rat, something way smaller, they're going to go for the smaller prey. It's easier to kill, it's easier to tackle. In falconry, when we train any member of the buzzard lineage, we have to push them and encourage them, hey, you can tackle this larger prey. But it makes up to 90% of the prey base in Texas is rabbits. They hunt rabbits on their own. They also hunt rats, snakes, lizards, frogs, and surprisingly, a lot of arthropods. So that's like your insects. They'll eat a lot of cicadas. They'll hunt beetles, and they'll hunt grasshoppers. Now that should seem strange. That's very unusual to have a bird this big that will hunt prey as large as a rabbit, but also hunt insects. Now something like a Swainson's hawks, it makes sense. Swainson's hawks are diminutive. They're kind of little members of the buzzard family. Swainson's hawks, they'll hunt mice and rats, but they love to hunt insects. To get a Swainson's hawk, to encourage them to go after something like a rabbit, that's crazy. They can do it, but it's crazy. But the fact that you have a bird large enough that on its own it is already hunting wild rabbits, but it will also go to the level of just eating insects, then that's great. Right? And because they live in such arid regions and such prairies and plains and deserts, then it is sensible, because food is food. And if you can be on the ground walking around, oh, here's a beetle, oh, here's a cicada, oh, here's some grasshoppers, that just adds up. That's free, easy meal. It's like eating a cheeseburger instead of having to go chase down a cow. And so it kind of makes sense. Some of these desert regions, you've got to go with what food source is available, but it seems kind of strange to our sensibilities. They do hunt a lot of songbirds, and they'll even hunt quail, which again, that is kind of surprising, because a bird this size and this power normally is considered to be also kind of slow. Its ability to dive is understood, but the maneuverability is kind of dismissed. Red-tailed hawks, which are a similar size, you don't see them going and hunting birds regularly. Not usually, not songbirds. That would be kind of a stretch for them. These guys do it regularly. So even though they're kind of ponderous and slow and dumpy, when they want to, when they're hunting avian prey, they can really get up and go. They do hunt a lot of rabbits and birds and arthropods of all kinds. It's kind of strange, but it's also weird because they also hunt monkeys, like marmosets, and that's kind of strange because when you think about it, it's a bird that ranges from Texas to the tropics. I don't think about monkeys when I'm thinking of Texas, but because the bird ranges down further and down into in Latin America, then yeah, there's monkeys, and it will hunt those small monkeys. So you got something that'll hunt grasshoppers, monkeys, rabbits. It's quite a wide prey range, and so that's why it's so successful. It is known to also key in on brush fires. And if there are brush fires, it'll come to the fire and try to find opportunities where prey is trapped, and it'll just dive in and catch it. Because when you have these grasslands, they cover up everything. And when that starts to burn through, prey is like, we got to get out of here. And they come out from their hiding, and it makes very easy prey. So the white-tailed hawk, again, is the first of the 3 New World buzzard eagles. And it's a very beautiful bird. I've never worked with one directly. I would like to. But again, it's about the size of a large red tail. Has a few color morphs and some color variation, but a very interesting species, and I think they're pretty cool. The variable hawk doesn't have a very good name. It's a really cool species. It's another strikingly beautiful bird, and it is a buzzard eagle, which means that it's not a true eagle, but it's from like a buzzard lineage that has gotten bigger. And of course, buzzards are not vultures. Buzzards are soaring hawks, like red-tailed hawks. And this bird lives in the western coast of South America, and it lives from the Andean highlands to the Argentinian lowlands. So there's a wide range of difference in elevation, prey base, but it likes big open country. Now, the species itself has a wingspan of 60 inches, which is about 5 feet. And the weight is pretty hefty. Their weight is 1,800 grams, which is up to 4 pounds. So that's sizable. That you're getting into small eagle size by that size. So this would be comparable to a very large ferruginous hawk in North America. And this is larger. And this species itself is kind of in dispute. So the species is called a variable hawk for a reason. It has a ridiculously wide range of color morphs, and to the point that some people classify it as 2 separate species. The first one is the red-backed hawk, and which kind of speaks for itself. It's got this big old bright red back. And the other one is the puna hawk, which is the biggest of the subspecies of this species. The puna hawk is really rich, really dark colored, and really big. And they're geographically different, but genetics seem to show that they're just subspecies of the same species. So again, normally these are just classified as, hey, these are all just the variable hawk. But again, some people in some parts of the world consider them separate. So if you hear about the red-backed hawk or the puna hawk, genetics seem to show these are subspecies of the same species. And there's a wide range of pigment colors, and including melanistic. There's some that are totally dark. But the totally dark birds are different and separate from the puna hawk, which is the kind of the rich, kind of more colored one, but not strictly melanistic. So this is another species where the wings are longer than the tail. This is a strange adaptation. We don't see this a lot with soaring birds, but you do see it with these. And so folded up, you can see those wing feathers going down all the way past the tail. And again, this is a bird that spends most of its time on the wing. Most of its time it's soaring around and gliding and just cruising and looking for food. It's interesting that I find this bird to be very comparable in many ways to the auger buzzard. The auger buzzard is an old world species, and the auger buzzard is similar in size and weight. So I've worked a little bit with auger buzzards, and you're like, okay, this is similar to a red tail, and you're like, no, this is bigger. This is like the size of a ferruginous hawk. But you also have similar differences in color morphs. So the auger buzzards can be really white with a kind of, white chested and kind of black on the head. They can be very dark and melanistic. They can have some really pretty reds there. And they have a very similar way of life, the way they hunt and where they live. And so I kind of think that the variable hawk is the kind of the New World version of the Old World auger buzzard. And it's same thing too. You have the same kind of thing where when I was a kid, the auger buzzard and the jackal buzzard were kind of considered, going back and forth on, are these the same species? Are these separate species? Are they subspecies the same? And I think currently now jackal buzzards and auger buzzards are now considered to be separate species. And it's kind of the same thing. We could talk and consider a puna hawk and a red-backed hawk as being separate species. But genetics and human classification, nature doesn't care about it. Nature is just doing its thing. It's just trying to survive, trying to pass on its DNA. We try to understand how that works, and so we make definitions. We make taxonomic classifications so that we can talk with each other, and we all know what each other is talking about, and we can understand and be on the same page. So the habitat is very diverse in this species. They live above the tree line in the high mountains. They live on the Pacific coastal foothills. They live in the Patagonian steppes all the way down. They live in agricultural farms, just like you would expect a red-tailed hawk or a Swainson's hawk. They live in the humid pre-montane areas, and they live in the lowland forests as well. So they have a very broad range, but they love open country, and they can just diversify. But again, the fact that they are bigger is important and is of interest because they're bigger than the white-tailed hawk, which is their closest cousin, and they're kind of trying to punch up. They're trying to diversify, and being a little bigger can be good or bad. One of the good things about being bigger is you can maintain your body heat better. So when you get into high elevations with cold climates, if you eat something, like 90% of your processing of digestive is going towards keeping you warm-blooded. And the bigger you are, the more you can retain heat, and the less has to go to that. So that is part of the reason why they are so much bigger. Now, the variable hawk will usually hunt from a soar, which most soaring hunters, again, like a red-tailed hawk, if you're in America, it's probably the most common association. You normally don't see them soaring. You normally see them perching. They want to conserve energy, just sit around and look in a field and look for something to hunt. But not these guys. These guys like to hunt from a soar, and that helps them having those extended primaries that are a lot longer for their size than one would expect. And so they normally do hunt from a soar. Small mammals are 90% of their prey, but they hunt some strange things. One of the things they hunt, and if you're not familiar with these species, these might kind of seem very odd and interesting. They like to hunt cavies. They hunt tuco-tucos. Got some fun names there. They hunt rabbits, of course. And they'll hunt mice. They'll hunt earthworms. Seems odd for a bird this size. They'll hunt grasshoppers. And they'll also hunt frogs, snakes, and lizards. So this is a bird that has a very broad food range. And that's kind of strange. It takes them a while to get to adulthood. Like any member of this genus, when they have their young, the eggs hatch. They have a large stick nest. They'll have 1 to 3 eggs. And it takes them 3 to 5 years to reach their adult colors, which again is not normal for a hawk this size. Normally you hatch, you couple months, you're full size, and then you have your baby colors for 1 year. Then you molt, and you molt into your adult colors. Not these guys. These guys take 3 to 5 years. And so you have all these different color phases along the way until they reach adulthood. And again, this is an attribute we normally see with eagles. But these are not eagles. These come from a buzzard lineage that are becoming eagle-like. And again, that is one of the things. But again, one of the things we think they're a small species getting bigger rather than a big species getting smaller is the fact that they lay so many eggs. They'll lay up to 3 eggs. That's not normal for a large bird. For an eagle, they're laying usually only 1, maybe 2 eggs. And usually if they lay 2 eggs, only 1 hatches. This is a bird that will lay 3 and occasionally 4 eggs. So this is a smaller bird that's in the process of getting bigger. It has such a wide range and such a wide range of colors from everything. I mean, they can be slate, they can be gray, they can be black, they can have tons of red on their back, they can be entirely red, they can be entirely gray. But again, if you look at the patterning, on their chest, anywhere you see any of those little bars, you'll see that the patterning is the same of every member in this genus. You will see that they look just like a black-chested buzzard eagle. They look like a white-tailed hawk in the patterning. Now, the thickness of the pigment can change, but the patterning seems to be the same in all 3 members of this genus. So the variable hawk is a really cool species and a very successful species. And again, this is a bird about the size of a ferruginous hawk, and very successful in all of its range. The black-chested buzzard eagle. Black-chested buzzard eagles are the largest member of the genus Gerontoides. And so they're the largest of the buzzard eagles, and the only one that has buzzard eagle in its name. Its two smaller cousins, of course, the white-tailed hawk and the variable hawk, have the term hawk in the name, but they should be called the white-tailed buzzard eagle and the variable buzzard eagle, and then this is the black-chested buzzard eagle. Now, in recent years, this large species has started to be called the Chilean blue eagle by some people, which sounds kind of noble. It's the size of an eagle. Sure, let's call it the Chilean blue eagle. But now I used to start to call it that, and I used to refer to it that, but now I don't. Because, first of all, it lives in far more places than just Chile. It lives all throughout South America. It pretty much lives just about everywhere in South America except in the Amazon basin. Anywhere where you could have some open country, whether it's the high Andes or whether it's, the lowland country, you could find these. They're very adaptable and they've ranged wide. So it's not a Chilean species. It lives all over. And also, it's not an eagle. It's a buzzard eagle. And again, if you're in the United States, the term buzzard makes you think of a vulture. It's an incorrect term. Buzzards are soaring hawks, like the common buzzard of Eurasia. Look, we would think it's a hawk, okay, like a red-tailed hawk. So buzzard eagle is kind of like saying what Americans would say hawk eagle. And so I think the black-chested buzzard eagle denotes truth, which is the fact that this bird has adapted from smaller species that have gotten larger. And again, its closest cousins, the white-tailed hawk and the variable hawk, you see bigger, and finally biggest. Now, a black-chested buzzard eagle is a substantial bird. Their wingspan is about 6 feet 7 inches. That's sizable. And their weight is up to 7 pounds. So this is a proper eagle-sized bird. And again, we have to be careful because using the word eagle, a true eagle is an aquila eagle, which means it's in the golden eagle family. But again, we use the term eagle for all other kinds of birds, like harpy eagles are not technically eagles. Bald eagles are not technically eagles, but we still use the term mostly denoting their size. So the same thing here. This bird is eagle-sized. And so I think the black-chested buzzard eagle is a perfect term for it. And so I went from calling them black-chested buzzard eagles to starting to roll with everybody else calling them Chilean blue eagles. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with buzzard eagle. I can't help it that America associates the term buzzard with vultures. They're not related to turkey vultures. Don't view them that way. So buzzard eagle is what they are. And I think it's a perfect term for them. They are proper size. They're a powerful bird. There are 2 subspecies of these, and they're pretty close. They're pretty close in appearance. The eastern black-chested buzzard eagle is larger, and it kind of has a plain white belly. Basically, there's no barring. The math is still there. When you get to the fringes up by the throat and stuff, you might, or on the flanks, you might see a little bit of the barring, but basically it's white-chested, white belly. And then the western black-chested buzzard eagle is smaller of the 2 subspecies, and it has fine barring all across its belly. But again, where these ranges overlap, you're going to have some of the same morphological characteristics on those feathers, but these are the 2 recognized subspecies. They have broad, oversized wings. So their secondaries are so long. So if you're looking at a wing, and if wings spread out, the secondaries are, you got the primaries and then you got the secondaries. The secondaries are so oversized that they line up with the tail. And this makes the tail seem short. If you read field guides about this bird or read descriptions online, they'll say, a very short-tailed eagle, blah, blah. It's like, no, not at all. It has a normal length tail, and it has oversized primaries, but it has ridiculously oversized secondaries, and they make the tail seem short. So I want to show you comparisons so you actually understand. We have this problem all the time. It drives me crazy with, especially, let me give you another example. I am a passionate researcher of the genus Buteogallus, which is the black hawk lineage, from the black solitary eagle to the common black hawk to all these birds. These birds have oversized secondary feathers, so when they're folded up, it covers most of the tail. And then in flight, you have to kind of line it up and see where the tail actually is. So this is another species. The black hawk is another one where people always say, oh, they have a short tail. No, they don't. They have a ridiculously long tail. They just have ridiculously long secondaries that cover it up. And it drives me crazy. It's like you're looking right at it. And this is the same problem with these black-chested buzzard eagles. People say, oh, they have a short tail. No, they don't. They just have huge secondaries. Let's compare. Let's look at another species that actually has probably the shortest comparative tail of any raptor species, and that is the Bateleur eagle of Africa. Bateleurs are kind of the king of the serpent eagles. They have big wings, oversized primaries, but they have a ridiculously stumpy tail. And even walking around, you can see them. We don't know why, but they do. They have this tiny, stumpy little tail. And you see it with the wings. You see they do have big secondaries, but you see in flight how, okay, this is what it looks like to have an actually short tail. Even with those broad secondaries, this is what it actually looks like is on a Bateleur. But they're nothing compared to these. Chilean blues have such oversized secondaries that it lines up and it makes the tail look short. But again, if you draw the lines and show where the tail goes up to, no, they have a long, proper sized tail. So it's good to kind of see those differences and recognize them. Now, they do have a wedge-shaped tail. Kind of like a wedge-tailed eagle. You look at the wedge-tailed eagles of Australia, similar, but not as wedge-tailed, but still kind of pointing out that is unique in the genus, because the other members of this genus, the white-tailed hawk and the variable hawk, these two species have a normal tail shaped like a red tail. But this one, the Chilean blue eagle, does have sort of a wedge-shaped tail. But again, remember, do not listen to the field guides or do not listen to the Wikipedia articles that say, oh, it's a short-tailed eagle. No, it's not. It's a long-tailed eagle with ridiculously oversized secondaries. So what this does, this makes an entire airfoil, it's like a fin that they can just glide with, almost like a bat. It just wraps around, and because it caters to the way they hunt. This is a bird that spends almost all its time on the wing. It lives in tremendously open country, and it's got to cover large ground to be able to find prey. So it doesn't have a lot of perches, so you just got to keep going and going and going. And having your secondary so long, they line up with your tail, that's a good thing if that is your strategy for hunting. The black-chested buzzard eagle is a supreme hunter of a wide range of prey. It's very adaptable, and its range is varied. I mean, because it covers, from the high Andes to the lowlands. I mean, it covers a wide range, so you're getting a wide range of prey base. Its primary prey that it hunts are European hares, which have been introduced throughout South America, and they've done well. They've proliferated. And this is a good example. They're like, well, hey, okay, we're going to... You have the same kind of thing happen in Australia where the wedge-tailed eagles normally are hunting things like kangaroos and wallabies and scavenging. And then humans brought European hares. And they're like, oh, hey, these things are breeding like rabbits. Literally, let's eat them all. Same thing. So black-chested buzzard eagles have actually benefited greatly by humans introducing European hares throughout South America. But left to their own devices without those things, they will hunt cavies, which are an interesting species. They'll hunt common dagus, which are another kind of interesting species. They'll hunt, how do I even pronounce it? I'm looking at my note here. Vizcachas, that's right. Okay, I had to research these species because some of these, it's like, these things are weird. Vizcachas, there's a few different kinds of vizcachas. There's some that almost look like a cross between a rabbit and a kangaroo with a spirally tail. But there's some vizcachas that are almost more rodent, like a ground rodent. They have like a weird stripy face. But there's several species of vizcachas, and they will hunt these, and that's their normal prey base outside of the European hares that have been there. They will hunt several species of skunks, and you have to remember, most birds cannot smell at all. They have no use for it. Turkey vultures are a notable exception, but most birds have absolutely no sense of smell. So skunks, their primary defense is an olfactory spray. It's like, you come near me, I'm going to spray with this horrible spray. And, you got these black-chested buzzard eagles like, ha, 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 spray all you want. I can't smell a thing. And, skunks are predators. But they don't put up as much as a fight. They more rely on their smell. And so they provide good food for black-chested buzzard eagles. They will hunt other raptors, including, most notably, they have been seen to hunt burrowing owls. And I've worked with a number of burrowing owls over the years, and they're fast, but they're not as fast as a black-chested buzzard eagle. So they can just get clobbered by these things. Now, the species will also hunt a wide range of lizards and snakes. And that's good eating. So again, you think about where they live, these from Andean highlands to montane forests to lowlands, you're getting a wide prey base, and anywhere you're going to live, they're going to tackle whatever's available there, including scavenging. This is an active supreme scavenger, especially the high elevation ones, and they actively compete with Andean condors. Now, Andean condors are arguably the largest flying bird on the planet today. There's an albatross that might have a slightly longer wingspan, and the cinereous vulture of Europe, which used to be called like the great black vulture, also could contend for the size. But in the New World, for sure, the Andean condor is the biggest, and it's one of the biggest birds, if not the biggest flying bird in the world. Big, powerful members of the vulture family that evolved distantly from storks. So these things are huge, like up to a 12-foot wingspan. I've got some footage here from game cams of where you have Chilean blue eagles fighting and chasing Andean condors off of a dead animal. So if you have something scavenging, in nature we kind of glorify hunting. Oh, this animal is a hunter. It's a good hunter. Great, good, it's wonderful. Oh, if it scavenges, oh, that's beneath it. It's like, no, it's a free meal. You're a scavenger. You ever had a hamburger? Did you hunt down that cow? No. You scavenged a meal, an easy meal. So it's actually a very good survival strategy, and free meal is a free meal. So the thing is, during the Ice Age, which is very recent, just a few thousand years ago, there was so much megafauna in the New World that is gone now. There were horses, zebras, camels, llamas. There were 2 camels that were as tall as giraffes. There was 6 different species of buffalo. There was 7 different species of woolly elephant. There were a ton of different species of giant ground sloth. There were just huge animals roaming back and forth between North and South America and spreading out. Those things are going to die. Whether they're hunted or things, you have that many. If you have massive herds of buffalo, there were 14 different species of antelope. And, well, some of them are going to die of old age or sickness along the way. So being a scavenger is great. I'm just soaring around and I see, oh, look, 2 miles away, I see condors gathering up on a thing. Hey, let's go over here and let's, I'm going to scavenge and chase them off. And you see this same kind of dynamic playing out in the Old World. There are many giant species of vultures in the Old World, not related to condors, but filling the same role. And you have like tawny eagles and steppe eagles that will come in and fight you off and chase you off and take claim of this kill. So it's a good way to live, and it's amazing to see something, because again, it's odd that black-chested buzzard eagles will hunt prey as small as snakes and lizards and insects, but they'll also hunt full-size European hares. But we believe the inference is that their big size has nothing to do with hunting. The inference that has been made by biologists is that their enormous eagle-sized size is entirely due to needing to chase other larger scavengers like condors off of kills that they want to scavenge on, of dead megafauna animals. Now you got to think about it. Andean condors, 12-foot wingspan. Well, during the Ice Age, we also had teratorns, which were even bigger members of the condor lineage that, had up to, close like a 15 to 18 to 20-foot wingspan. Those were enormous. So if you're going to hold your own on a kill site and you're going to try to throw others off, you've got to have some size too. So in other words, the powers that be favored getting larger over time. And That makes sense, because other than that, all the things they hunt really are no different than their two close cousins, the white-tailed hawk and the variable hawk. Those are, big hawks that hunt, the exact same prey. So again, those two hawks will not try to chase off a condor, but a Chilean or a black-chested buzzard eagle will. And so again, we believe the real reason why they're so big has nothing to do with prey. It has to do with holding their own. And now you don't have the truly giant condors. You have Andean condors, which are enormous, but you don't have the extinct condor species. And so now they're like, yeah, I can just chase anything off. I don't care that you're bigger than me. Roar. You got to understand too, condors can bite hard, but that's it. They have size and they can bite hard. Condors' feet are just like chicken feet. They cannot grip, where black-chested buzzard eagle has powerful feet and incredible gripping force. And so, again, it's really interesting to see this dynamic that condors indirectly probably shaped black-chested buzzard eagles into getting bigger, favored, because the bigger ones were able to dominate a scavenged carcass and survive, where the smaller ones will get chased off by the condors, and so the bigger ones survived, pass on their DNA, and over time, you have bigger and bigger black-chested buzzard eagles. It's kind of neat to think of it from that perspective. Echoes back from the Ice Age. These species like to nest on cliffs. Typically, they will nest on trees, but usually you find them kind of on prominences on cliffs. They'll lay 1 to 3 eggs, which again, that is strange because normally, big birds only lay 1 to maybe 2 eggs, and smaller birds lay more eggs. And again, this is another indicator that likely the buzzard eagles of the New World, which is the white-tailed hawk, the variable hawk, and the black-chested buzzard eagles, these 3 buzzard eagles likely came from a smaller lineage and are moving larger. Where again, we have other instances like with the ornate hawk eagle of the New World that was from a bigger lineage that is favored getting smaller. So you're getting birds that are about the same size, but they're coming at it from different directions for different reasons. And again, the inference with black-chested buzzard eagles is the whole reason they're as big as they are is because of trying to have the ability to dominate a carcass. So these birds on their nests are very aggressive. They will aggressively defend their nests. This is odd in the raptor world. Most raptors, if you get there near their nest, they'll kind of make sounds at you. They might make a couple of passes at you, but for the most part, they don't do much. Now, of course, accipiters are an exception. So like a goshawk or Cooper's hawk, these are birds that will go and attack you. And these guys do it too. Black-chested buzzard eagles, they will attack you. They will dive and attack and be very aggressive near the nest, which is kind of interesting. Don't know why that is, as other closely related species are not that way, but that's where they are. Another interesting thing about this species, because you're covering an interesting range, crossing over even on the equator and stuff. You're getting into some tropical areas and some really cold areas for the same species. So some of them are very seasonal in their nesting, which of course, in deep South America, winter is what would be summer up here. So, they're summer, they're nesting. But in the tropical regions, they'll nest any time of year. They'll just, with their mate, they'll be like, hey, okay, there's prey, let's start a family. There's enough to feed this family. That's unusual to have sort of a year-round nester. Not that they're just non-stop nesting, but the time of year they nest in their tropical parts of their range can be literally any time of year. Now, this species, the young birds, after they hatch and they start to grow up, the first-year birds are dark, just like the rest of this genus of Geranoides. They're dark, and it takes them 5 years to reach their adult colors. So that's no different than any other true eagle, like a golden eagle, or any other large eagle that is not a true eagle, but is eagle size, like a harpy eagle. It's going to take them 3 years. The harpy eagle is going to start with these white, kind of fluffy, bright colors, and then they go through several color morphs, and by the time they're 5 years old, 6 years old, they have their adult colors. It's the same thing with black-chested buzzard eagles, which, again, would lead a person to think that this is a big species that has cousins that are smaller. But again, genetics and the number of eggs they lay seem to indicate that these come from a small lineage that is getting bigger, which is kind of an interesting way to view it. It's it's interesting that how that works, that over time that, what will favor and what will kind of shape things. They, as a species, they have been used and tested in falconry. And I know throughout Europe, there's a lot of people who breed them. I know there's a lot of people in South America who keep them, use them in falconry. They have definitely been proven as a falconry bird. However, I've never flown one. I would love to work with one of these birds so much. It's just such an iconic symbol of, especially of South America, that just, they're so cool looking. But what I've been told by people who have flown them is that they're ponderous, that they're kind of slow on the chase. Now, that if you had a really gamey red-tailed hawk, you would be catching more quarry than you would with a Chilean blue eagle. Now, in their defense, a Chilean blue eagle is a bird that just wants to hunt from a soar and then kind of, there's something, we're going to dive down and catch it. However, they're also capable of catching very fast, very agile species. The European hare currently is their largest prey base, and hunting hares, that's falconry of the highest order. So in the wild, they're doing what is considered falconry of the highest order. So the people I've talked to who have flown them, I don't know. I don't know what their experience is with buzzards, and so I don't know if they, needed to exercise them more, get them more keyed in on a prey base. But this is just what I've been reporting. And again, they will even hunt birds in the wild. So they can be very fast. They can be very agile. And they can hunt the prey that we would normally hunt within falconry anyways, which is European hares. So I don't know what to say, but I'm just reporting what I have been told by people I know who have flown them, that you would do better with a really gamey red-tailed hawk than one of these. But what a thrill it would be to actually work with an actual Chilean black-chested buzzard eagle. I keep almost saying Chilean blue eagle. Yeah, because so many people are trying to push that. But again, I think black-chested buzzard eagle is better because it's more accurate. They are buzzard eagles, and I think they're really cool. So a truly remarkable species. If I ever get a chance to interview somebody who's worked with one, I'd like to do another video like this, going into more depth and kind of explaining the species better from a first-hand experience. But I hope this overview is of value to you, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this. Okay, we're going to pause for a second. We're going to pause, and here we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning about the buzzard eagles of the New World, the Geranoides genus. They're a fascinating group. It was fun to research them and kind of understand how people dispute which ones are species and which ones are subspecies. And if you've worked with any of these, please let me know down in the comments. And if you have one of these, any of these species, and would like to share and maybe collaborate and do a video, you can send to benwoodruffalconry@gmail.com. Send that there, and we can do a little interview and share your intake, your insights into these amazing species. So, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, if you could please hit subscribe. And as always, happy hawking.